Welcome to the Two Dads No Supervision podcast. This is your host, Ian, with my co host, Drew.
Yeah, I'm bringing the energy.
Welcome to the Two Dads No Supervision podcast, where we talk about pee, politics, Panthers, and parenthood. We're not afraid to cross streams, even though we're standing in different stalls.
Yeah, so let's kind of get into just the political side of things here. Is there anything that has happened within the last few weeks that you just want to talk about or bring up or is of concern of you?
Look, I think I said this before. Politics is a lot like soap operas for nerds, and the drama is brewing. I must be in a weird mood today. I don't know. But so we have the Elon Musk, Donald Trump feud that was going gangbusters. Someone's calling someone a drug addict. The other person's calling them a pedophile and typical junior high stuff. And then I don't know if you paid attention, but suddenly Elon likes Trump again because there are riots in Los Angeles. And so Waymo cars are on fire and Mexican flags are flying, and we got the National Guard and maybe the Marines, I don't know, and just chaos. And then Elon's like, oh yeah, look at how good Trump is, and now he's handling all this really well. I don't know. It's a lot to keep up with. I do want to say, I have a theory that we always knew that Elon was coming out of the White House or out of the government at this point. He just has that 145-day time limit or something like that. So that was always happening. It's been on the calendar for a while. I have a feeling that part of this fight, maybe all of it, is a distraction from something else. I don't know if it has to do with the big, beautiful bill. I don't know if it has to do with something else that we just don't know or don't see at this point. But you have two of the biggest trolls in the world who were good friends, and then suddenly they can't stop talking about how much they hate each other. And now that there's fires in Los Angeles, the fight has disappeared for a second. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Ian?
Yeah, I think with anything, if we're looking into Trump and his motivations, a lot of people like to think that he's playing 4D chess. The reality is he's got the mind of a toddler. That's just what it is. So it really is Occam's razor here, where the simplest answer is probably the right answer here. And the simplest answer is you have two people who have huge egos, as well as two people who don't really have a filter on the things that they say. So when both of their egos get hurt, and we've seen this with Trump throughout his career. I mean, he was calling up people under a fake name in the 80s to say, "Oh yeah, Trump is actually great. He has so many women who are in love with him, and he's such a great lover."
It's always been the hair.
And Elon Musk likes to call people pedophiles. That is his go-to move. Bill Gates, pedophile. Chilean minors, well, those are pedophiles. Donald Trump, that's a pedophile, right? That is his go-to move. That is what it is. I don't think that this is anything deeper than two children who have huge egos and no accountability for their actions, just fighting out in public. I don't think there's any deeper meaning to it. I don't think that there is a huge split that is happening or anything else. You just have two toddlers who are fighting with each other, and we get to see it out on the grand stage.
So you don't think, first of all, I would have to disagree. I think they have the maturity of toddlers at times, but both of these men are wildly successful financially. Debate all you want about Trump's financial success. He's built a huge brand for himself. Even if Trump steaks were chewy and whatever Trump cologne smelled like dog poop, like it's still, he's made himself a big brand over decades. He's remained viable as an attention grabber for decades. So he's got something going on upstairs. I have a theory it has something to do with the big beautiful plan, that it's like drawing attention to the national debt thing. I don't know how much of this, I don't think anyone knows how much of this is Trump has written all this out, or Trump has people in his camp who have written these things out, and then Trump finds out it adds this to the deficit. Oh, and it adds this to the deficit. Well, we don't want that, but I don't want to make it look like I'm indecisive. And so maybe if we can draw attention to it, then we can get Congress to break it apart and push through the things that need to be pushed through, and then kill the parts of the bill that shouldn't be in that bill altogether. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that's not what Trump is calling for, right? Anybody who raises concerns about the big, beautiful bill, he calls a rhino, and he says, we got to get this guy out of here, right? So I don't think it is anything to do with, oh, well, we need to deconstruct this bill to make sure that we're not passing anything that's bad or again, Elon Musk, yes, he is very intelligent. I'm not saying that he isn't intelligent. He does have the emotional maturity of a toddler, though. Whenever you have like 10 baby mamas and you have no impulse control, which we know he doesn't, right? Like there are things there that, again, we're not talking about them having a debate on the efficacy of this bill or what we should be doing moving forward. We're talking about one person calling someone a pedophile and the other one calling them a drug addict, right? So I'm not saying that Elon doesn't have legitimate concerns. He's just not actually raising them, right? He's not going out there showing the actual bill and saying, hey, this is something that we can't do. This is something that we can't do. This is something that we can't do. I was hired by the government to cut out government waste, and this right here is all government waste. He's not doing that, right? Donald Trump is not going out and saying, these are the great things about the bill. He just says, this is a big, beautiful bill. And anybody who says differently is lying to you, right? So, I mean, that is where I'm at. Like the actual fight itself, I don't think is anything. I think it's just two people who have huge egos. I do think that you're not going to see Elon in the White House anymore, even like outside of his role as Doge.
Oh, and wait, I thought he was our true president.
Look, I think that people underestimate the manipulation power that Donald Trump has, because every time people are like, oh, this rich and powerful person is going to use Donald Trump, they end up getting used by Donald Trump and they end up getting tarnished for it, right? So, but
he's the master.
That's kind of.
So the real question is, are you on mom's side or dad's side in this fight? Obviously, Elon's our mom.
Donald Trump is a mob boss. That is like full stop. He is a mob boss. He runs everything like he is part of the mob. Everything about him is loyalty. If you say anything that goes against him, you're no longer part of the in-group. You're no longer part of the mob. I'm going to take you out. Like that is exactly how he runs things. And a lot of these rich and powerful people are not used to dealing with the mob, right? I am on Elon's side. The big, beautiful bill is a big, beautiful mess. It is awful. There is no redeeming qualities of the big, beautiful bill outside of a small bit of deregulation, which you can do without any of the other stuff, right? We're talking about
Here
adding.
First. Ian wants to tax your tips.
Yes. This is one of the dumbest arguments of people saying we shouldn't have tax on overtime or we shouldn't have tax on tips. That's income. I'm sorry. It is just regular income. You don't get to say, well, no, this portion right here, this is special income. This is income that is not taxed because I don't have a salary like someone over here who all of their income gets taxed. It it Do I care if people get like taxes on their income or taxes on their tips? No. Like if we're going to get rid of taxes on tips, you know what that means? Instead of tipping 20%, I'm going to tip 10%. That's exactly what it comes down to. You're going to
People don't
again
think about that part. Like, yeah, that means there's no tax write-off for the wealthy benefactors who are trying to get big tips.
well that ends. I mean, if you just think about it, like if I know that all of this money is going straight to you, and most people don't even claim their taxes or
That's the big
their
thing, man.
taxes on their tips anyways, right? So now everybody knows, hey, you're not getting taxed on this. So instead of paying you 20%, I'll pay you 10%, and you're still going to get the same amount of money, right? Well, unfortunately, you just got a 50% decrease because you haven't been claiming tax on your cash chips for the last, however many years. And then tax on overtime. There should still be income tax on overtime. And we'll get into this as we talk about the debt. The issue with America is we don't tax enough. We need to raise taxes. And I know Drew's head is about to explode, but we are the least taxed country in the world, and there's a reason why our debt keeps going up.
It's because our government is the worst run business in the world. It always has been since, well, not always, but since like probably the turn of the 20th century.
Well, the government isn't a business.
It is a business. It's run exactly like a very bad business.
No.
It's supposed to be a service of the people, by the people, for the people. It's not. It's a business. And they take our money. They provide services like they provide roads, and they provide like management of the military and management of bureaucracy and all that baloney. But really, it's a business. It's a very poorly run business.
Governments are not businesses, and we'll get into this later.
But they are.
They aren't. They are not a business, and we'll get into this later as we get into like the deeper conversation of the rising debt in the United States. One thing that I do want, because you did mention what's going on in Los Angeles, the first thing that I do want to point out is it is okay to want to secure your border. We should want to secure our border.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We should not want illegal immigration. Like, those are things that both the left and the right should agree upon, that we should be able to secure our border, and we should be able to vet those who are coming through. Now, Drew and I may have completely different ideas of what that looks like once that's fixed, but that is a goal that we should all strive for. That being said,
I'm going to come from a different perspective than maybe a lot of conservatives on that, because my wife is an immigrant, legal immigrant. My brother-in-law is an immigrant, also legal, but it was a tough time for everyone in that process. That process is way overcomplicated, way too expensive. At one point, my wife and I had been married 2 years, and we went in for an interview to get her moved from the temporary to the permanent residency, which is something that, at least at that time, everyone had to do. And they were going to deny my wife her permanent residency and deport her because we didn't have kids and we didn't own property. And so they thought our marriage was a sham. Well, I was a former pastor at that point, so we'd been married 5 years. So I was living at my parents' house at the point, and we hadn't had kids because we were infertile. We had been trying to have kids, and they were going to deport us because we weren't legitimate enough. So that whole process, it's horrible, honestly. It shouldn't be as complicated as it is. It really needs to be simplified a lot. I think there should be some sort of sacrifice to say, hey, we want to come here and this is a worthy task, a worthy venture that we're partaking on. But we shouldn't have to wait like 6 months minimum to 2 to 3 years in limbo. Like, are they going to approve us? Are they not? Are they going to approve us? Are they not? Well, they need more information from us now. And then now they need these pictures and they need these documents. And all the documents have updated since the last time we filled them out. So we got to fill all these like 76 pages of papers and fill them out and send them in again. And then hope in 6 months we hear good news. It shouldn't be that way at all. It's got to be a simplified process. How long does it take to do a background check on someone? Then maybe double that, because you're doing it internationally. I get it, but it's like a month max, probably. And you get to paperwork. Okay, are you a serial killer? No? Okay, good. All right, thanks for signing this paperwork. You can come in now. That kind of thing. I don't know. Like, it's got to be a little bit stronger of a vetting process than that, but it shouldn't be nearly as complicated as it is now. It's a mess now.
Okay, so actually, Drew and I will probably agree on the end point of what we would want things to be. Because yes, I do think that if you are wanting to come to the United States, if you're wanting to work, if you're wanting to contribute to the country, then you should be able to come through and be in the country. I think right now the waiting period to get your citizenship, if you're coming from Mexico, is almost 20 years, which is, it's insane. Like, that cannot be the case. We need to streamline this. As you said, I think that people should come over with temporary status, right? Which means that we know where they are, we can check in on them, and we can run background checks, we can vet them, right? If you break the terms of that temporary status, right, then you're out of the country. I think that's pretty easy there. And then as we're vetting people and as we figure out, hey, like most immigration, the 8% of these people are coming over and they're contributing to the country. They're contributing to their communities, and they're doing the things that we want to reward in America, not make them feel scared. Then they can get a permanent residency, right? I think citizenship is a little different, right? Again, I do think that citizenship should be something that has deeper meaning. So, if you want to marry someone here, or if you're having kids here who are citizens and whatnot, I think that should be a path to citizenship for you as well. But if you're just here working and whatnot, then you just get a permanent residence. That would be my crude plan thinking about it.
So this is something we have to work on, because my wife, permanent resident, people don't know this. A lot don't. Permanent residency is not permanent. It's 10 years. And then at the end of that 10 years, you got to go through the entire process again. And I think my wife has another 2 or 3 years in that. And so we have to decide, do we want to spend the couple $1,000s it takes for her to get her citizenship? And then what does that mean for her Brazilian citizenship? And how does that all, we got to go through all that paperwork? Or do we go through the process of filling out literally 120 pages of forms, and then again, several $100s to a couple $1,000s of just renewing her permanent residency here? And our daughter is a citizen. I'm a citizen, her husband. So I don't know. I would like to have dual citizenship in Brazil, just so I could feel like a spy, like a James Bond character or something. But right. That's really the only value I have in it.
No, for sure. And I wanted to say that to bring it to what's happening in LA. So if we paint a bigger picture of what has happened under the Trump presidency as it pertains to immigration, they are not looking to get rid of illegal immigrants. They are looking to get rid of any immigrant. And I know people are going to say, no, that can't be the case. If they were just looking to get rid of illegal immigrants, they would have never enacted the Alien Enemy Act, which strips away due process. You wouldn't need to strip away due process if the people you're getting rid of aren't legally allowed to be in the country. You wouldn't need that.
I think
And
the
then-
process. Okay,
And
go ahead.
then when the Supreme Court said, well, actually, you can't deport these people to other countries without due process because they're no longer under your jurisdiction, what did they do? They filed to suspend habeas corpus, which means that you don't get a right to appear in court. These are actions that they're taking in broad daylight. This isn't something that, hey, we think this may be like a nefarious plan or anything else. No. When Trump was running for office, he said that he was going to aspire to have Operation Wetback, which, if you look at Operation Wetback in the 1950s, this is what they did. They rounded up people who were here legally, who were here illegally, and who were U.S. citizens, and they shipped them out of the country. They detained them indefinitely. And this is what Trump said he aspires his immigration plan to be. Again, really out there in the open. I know people are going to say, well, no, this is what they want to do, right? So now you have ICE members who are dressed in plain clothes, taking people off the streets without giving them due process. This is kidnapping. That is what it is. We know that we sent 50 people who were here legally to El Salvador to a workers' camp where it appears that the people who are working work until they die. We sent 50 people there mistakenly because there's no due process. So now you have protests that are going on in Los Angeles saying, we are not going to allow this to happen. And yes, there has been some property damage and there's been some attacks on ICE agents that I do not condone. But there's been over 1,000 arrests by the local police department and local officials. They have it under control. So to federalize the National Guard and to potentially send active duty troops into a state, revoking that state of their state rights to protect themselves, is an egregious measure. Even if you disagree with everything that I said in the first part of this, of what Trump's immigration plan really is to do, you have to agree that federalizing National Guards and sending Marines into Los Angeles is a huge overstep of federal power. And you don't have to ask me. You can ask Kristi Noem, who, when Biden threatened this in 2022, Kristi Noem said, this is an egregious overstep of federal power that is taking away states' rights, and I won't stand for it. So if it was bad for Biden to do it, or if it was bad for Biden to threaten it, it is worse for Trump to actually go through with this.
Here's my disillusionment.
That's what I have to say on the matter.
My disillusionment in politics is it's only bad if the other party's doing it. And I don't know where you stood in 2022 when Biden was threatening it, but when Democrats are like, "Oh yeah, do it," and Republicans are like, "Oh, that's taking away states' rights," and now when Trump does it, then I can't believe he's doing this, and then the Republicans are, "Oh, good job, Trump, saving us." Like, there's hypocrisy on both sides, and that is really annoying. But let me ask you this, okay? With the removing the judicial system and the due process and all of that, I don't condone that, okay? But is this maybe just an overcorrection saying, hey, we have 15 million or 11 million or 80 million, depends on who you're talking to. We have several million illegal immigrants here, and we don't have 15 years to run them through due process while we're still trying to keep out more illegal aliens in. So let's strip this away, get everyone out that needs to be out, and then we'll reinstate all of this and have a clean start. In that process, whenever you're doing mass moves like that, good people are going to get caught up in that. And it makes sense that we accidentally pulled those 50 people and sent them to El Salvador. Obviously, horrible thing, but could it just be that Trump, as he has been since day one of this term, has been working like a bull in a china shop and just like, all right, these are all the problems, so let's cut this out and let's cut this out and let's rip this out and let's throw that out, and he's just trying to correct as much as he possibly can before he gets assassinated or whatever happens to him.
Yeah, so due process as it pertains to immigration is not you get a court case, we get like a jury, and we can go ahead and like check this out. Due process as it pertains to immigration is that someone who is certified to look at immigration papers checks immigration papers, and that's the due process. So when you are stripping away that side of it, is a very simple process there. Again, so we're not talking about, hey, this is something where it isn't like the insane or the asylum process where you have your day in court. We have to determine, okay, are you fleeing somewhere
Right,
that
right.
is doing this or anything else? This is, hey, you've been stopped by an immigration officer. They are going to deport you. You can say, these are the reasons why I need to be in the United States because I have the right paperwork. And at that point, you're released. If you're not, then you're fine. And the other thing there too is, even if you think that is a lengthy process, you can still detain them indefinitely, right? You can still have them in detention centers before you send them out to another country where you don't have jurisdiction over.
Wouldn't we just call them concentration camps then?
I mean, that is what's happening in El Salvador. That is a concentration. That is a work camp there. That is, again, and
yeah, but that's them. That's
remember
not
this. People may not remember this, but Auschwitz is not in Germany. Auschwitz is in Poland, right? So that doesn't relieve us of the moral duty that we have as humans to understand what we're doing is wrong, right?
So, as someone who's been through the immigration process, you say it's as simple as looking at papers and making a quick decision. That's exactly what it is for going from your temporary residency to your permanent residency. And you still have to plan that 8 months to a year in advance to have that 20-minute appointment. And in that 20-minute appointment, like your whole life can be turned upside down, but just like that. We don't have time to do that 15 million times over. And so that's why I'm wondering if this is an overcorrection and saying, hey, we don't have time to wait 8 months per person while we also have to make all the immigration decisions of people coming in, we don't have time to deal with all of that. And the immigration system's overloaded because, again, it's a poorly run business and it's not working well. And so we need to strip away all of this and just get every illegal out of here, and then we'll start over. Like, again, I don't think it's the right way to handle it, but I'm wondering if that's the motivation behind the repealing habeas corpus and all that.
Yeah, I mean, that may be the motivation behind it, is we need to get rid of the immigrants. Sure.
That's not,
but that isn't
we need to get rid of the.
that isn't a great explanation or a moral explanation, right? Because remember, when they started this, they said, we're going after the criminals. There's not 11 million immigrants in the United States that are criminals. There's not.
See, here we go.
So
this is semantics, Ian. Did they break a law? What does illegal mean? It means they went around the legal system illegally.
Well,
and so they're criminals.
It depends. So if
I
they
know
came
they're
over,
innocent until proven guilty, they haven't been charged with anything. The charge is they are here illegally and they are stealing from the common citizen, the people who are actually supposed to be here, the citizens of the United States. They're stealing our resources, they're stealing our jobs, they're stealing from us. They are criminals, whether we've had time to charge them or not.
What are they stealing?
I just told you they're stealing our resources, our jobs. They're taking from our government funding.
Be specific. What resources are they stealing?
Housing. We've talked about the housing crisis. They're taking up housing, and they're taking up land, and they're taking up vocational opportunities. They're taking up our government resources. They're getting funding in the form of like SNAP and EBT and all that. They're getting funding in the form of like housing benefits and so on. I don't want to point people out, but I'm connected to people who are part of this system, and they're stealing from us and they're stealing from our government, and they shouldn't be here. There are the right ways to go about things, and they're not doing that. And so, yes, they are criminals, whether they've had time to be charged or not.
So, to be clear, if they're here illegally, they are not stealing resources as it pertains to SNAP or other things, unless if it's a state-ran thing. But they're not stealing federal funds. As a matter of fact, illegal immigrants are a fiscal positive to the United States because they can't get resources and because they contribute so much in taxes, right? Because they work, they make money, and they spend the money. So we know for a fact, fiscally, they are a positive. There has been numerous studies on this that show that illegal immigration fiscally is a positive for the United States. They are not stealing resources. They're adding more resources than they take away. When we get into the laws that they break, so the majority of people who are here illegally or undocumented are people who came over on visas and they didn't update their visa. Do you know what crime that is?
When they overstay their visa?
The punishment for that crime?
Usually deportation in 10 years.
It is a $5,000 fine. It is a municipal, it is equivalent to municipal parking tickets. It is not as we're talking about felonies, misdemeanors, everything else, right? So it is like a Class D misdemeanor. Now, if they came over the border illegally, knowing that they were dodging entry ports, that is That's an illegal action. That is a felony. Now, the issue with that being is you're deporting people who came over here when they were 5. The law strictly states that they have to know that they were dodging checkpoints. A 5-year-old does not know that they're dodging checkpoints. They don't, right? And that's why the Dreamers Act, was there, right? Because they realize that the way that this law is written, like, that is not a felony for them, right? So when we're talking about criminals and we're talking about like felonies, right? Like that's really important to point out there. Yes. Are they in the country illegally? Yes, I agree. We should have a system to vet those people. We should give them amnesty for people who are in the country. They are working hard. They are already part of communities, everything else. But when we talk about, oh, they're going after the criminals, when they were talking about criminals, they weren't saying, oh, these guys forgot to file paperwork. They were bringing up Lincoln Riley, right? They were bringing up violent criminals, right? There are not 11 million violent criminals who are here undocumented.
Well, of course
there's not. Even Kristi Noem said that there's about 600,000, which is a problem. I agree. We need to get rid of those people. But that's not what they're doing, right? They're trying to go after everybody. Because if these people were criminals, if they did have a violent record, you wouldn't need to strip due process away. Again, this comes down to the words that they've said, right? I aspire to bring back Operation Wetback. The actions that they've taken. We're going to enact the Alien Enemy Act so we can get rid of due process. And then the actions that they've taken after that, when the court said, sure, you can detain these people indefinitely without due process, but you cannot send them to another country that we do not have jurisdiction over without due process. They said, well, let's just get rid of habeas corpus. Their actions tell you exactly what they're looking to do. Because again, if they were just going after people who didn't have the right to be here or who posed a harm to the people here, they would not need to get rid of habeas corpus. They would not need to get rid of due process. They would not invoke the actions that were taken under Operation Wetback. This is very clear to me what Trump and Stephen Miller want to do, because they're telling you. They are blatantly telling you, right? ICE is no longer wearing identifying gear, right? They're in plain clothes, they're masked up, they're taking people off the streets and they're throwing them into vans. This is not something that is, hey, we want this to be above board. We want to make sure that as we get rid of people out of the United States, that we want to promote safety for those who are supposed to be in the United States. They want to create uncertainty. That is why you strip due process. That's why you want to get rid of habeas corpus. That's why you bring up Operation Wetback. That's why you are doing the things that you do, not because of the illegal immigrants that are here, but because of the immigrants that are here that you want to get out. So they either self-deport because they say, I don't want to live under this pressure, or 2, you round them up and you ship them out and you say, hey, sorry, we made a mistake. You cannot say, hey, sorry, we made a mistake to your wife who worked how many years to get the permanent residency that she's had. How is that fair to her?
Right. But you're having two different conversations, or a few different conversations here. Okay, one problem, detention centers, where are we going to put them? Because our prisons are full. Our detention centers are full. And so, again, I don't think they're handling this the way it should be. I'm trying to give some sort of understanding possibly to why they're doing the things that they're doing. Because the second conversation you're having is racial motivation. Because you say get rid of immigrants, really what you're meaning is get rid of everyone who's not white, right?
I don't think that it is a racial thing as much as it is a like a xenophobic thing, because they're doing this to people who come from Europe as well. So I do not think that this is strictly like we're going to round up brown people and we're going to get them out. Now, that's the majority of it, but if you look at the writings of Stephen Miller, you can see that he is openly xenophobic. Like he does not like immigration, right? And we saw this with the H-1B1 visas, where you had people who were like, Elon Musk was like, no, this is great. We need people from India to come over and to work and to help us out, because America doesn't have the brain power to do what we need to do at a high scale, right? And then you had people like Stephen Miller who was saying, no, Americans should be the only people in America. So like that is their motivation. It really is their motivation. At the end of the day, like I don't think this is a, hey, we need to get rid of Hispanics. This is, we need to get rid of people who are not American and we should only be American. And that in and of itself ends up showing that they don't have true American values, because the true American value of America was we are the beacon of light on the hill for everyone in the world to come and have the things that they need.
We're a really young country, generally speaking, and the only way that our country grew as quickly as it did is because of our immigration policies and the society that was built that allowed anyone to come in legally, but anyone come in, follow due process that they needed to get installed into society and then be contributing members of that society. I don't think anyone's arguing that. To be fair, I'm not reading up on Stephen Miller. All I know is what he looks like, bald head. You can't blame an entire administration's policies on the misguidance of a singular individual. You have a huge team of people working there. You're coming at an argument from silence, where he's not explicitly stated, hey, we only want Americans here in the United States, and anyone else who's not American by our standard, then get them out of here. Get them out. But it's more, I don't know. We're coming at an argument against someone who's not here to explain their positioning on that. And I haven't seen anywhere, and maybe you have some resources, I haven't seen anywhere where it's like, hey, we only want citizens here in the United States, no H1N1, no immigrants ever, only citizens.
I mean, if we just look at the actions, right, where they want to revoke international students to study at our universities, they want to strip away due process when they're getting rid of people, right? When they don't want H-1B1 visas to come into the United States, right? When they want to get rid of habeas corpus, when they are deporting people for writing columns that are against Israel, who are here as permanent residents. That is your First Amendment right, and they're deporting people for that, right? When you create travel bans from other countries, like many other countries, this paints a very clear picture of what they want long term and how they envision America, and it doesn't include immigrants. It doesn't, because you would not hurt your own country this way for the policies that are because keeping international students from studying at our universities is greatly harming the United States. It's greatly harming our research. It's greatly harming our innovation.
It really harms our impact on the world.
Exactly.
If you look at long term.
Yes, it hurts that. Getting rid of due process, trying to get rid of habeas corpus, that harms the country. It doesn't harm just immigrants, it harms the country. Because if you don't have due process, then you don't know if that person is here legally or right. If you're getting rid of habeas corpus, that means that when we enact laws and we can say, hey, this person over here did this crime, if the people in that county are corrupt enough, they can say, yeah, you did. Well, shouldn't I be able to go in front of a court? No. Habeas corpus has been suspended, right? So they are actively harming the country because of these values or ideals that they want to see move forward. Again, we can talk about how Trump talked about the poisoning of the blood, how immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country, right? Which is 1939, 1940 style rhetoric from Germany, right? We can talk about how Stephen Miller has come out and said that these people don't have a right to be here, right? Or how Trump has said that the homegrown ones we want to start sending to El Salvador, right? We can talk about the things that they've said, which are alarming. And we can debate those things. But when we actually look at the actions are much more alarming because these aren't just words. These are things that are being put into law. These are things that are changing the way that we function as a society in the United States. And again, I do not condone attacks on ICE agents. I do not condone property damage or lighting things on fire. And if you're going to do that, wave the American flag, please. Blair, born in the USA, just have that booming on every speaker in Los Angeles as you're burning down things and as you are attacking ICE agents. Wave your American flag because the optics on that end up looking so much better than if it is
maybe the optics
Mexican
are
flag.
what they are.
I mean, the optics are what they are, but at the same time, like,
the soundtrack would be a lot cooler if it wasn't some salsa.
I'm just saying, you would get a lot of people who don't know what's going on, and they would see the photos of people with American flags attacking this federal overreach of military members who are trying to go into a city and squash their First Amendment rights. You have Born in the USA just blaring in the background, right? Like, you set that scene. I think Trump turns into Taco once again, but I do just want to point that out, that you can still be against the things that they are doing and still be for a secure border and for vetting people who come into this country and who are going to stay into this country. Like, you don't have to choose the crazy sides, right? On one side, it's, hey, we need to get rid of due process. We need to get rid of habeas corpus. We need to do whatever we need to do to get these immigrants out of here. On the other side, you have like the extreme left who are saying, what are borders? Borders are just man-made things. Why are we going to let people... We should just let anybody who comes into the United States come into the United States. We should have no borders. We should be one world of peace and harmony and rainbows and unicorns. That is equal.
And I know we will one day see what that looks like, the fruits of that. If you look at the book of Revelation, the one world government and all of that. So I can promise, read the end of the story. It's chaos.
Well, hello there. This has been another episode of Two Dads, No Supervision. And surely we need some supervision, so please be sure to tell us in the comments what we need to do to fix ourselves. Also, like, share, subscribe. We love you all. We appreciate your attention. Thank you guys, and be good. What a dad would say.